And we're live.
Hey, we're live. And see, this is the part where you just have to kind of hang out and you wait for people to show up. So, if some of you may be watching this on the replay of this live stream, because I'm sure some of you are going to start showing up now, because I didn't really announce this live stream. And actually, I'm not even sure how to do that, to tell you the truth, with the mobile live stream, which is a little bit different than the regular live stream. But at any rate, that doesn't really matter. I've got Wyatt with me this
Hi.
time. He's manning the camera. And what I want to do is I thought I would make an actual, excuse me, an actual project in real time. So here it is. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday. I hope you guys are having a great day. And what I'm going to make are these are salad servers. I can trying to think of what they're called. Salad servers. So you could scoop up salad with these. So I had a video I shot of these earlier this week that'll be out tomorrow on Friday, which is the condensed version, the actual edited version of this project. And I realized how simple this is to make if you have a bandsaw. And another thing I was thinking is if it's your first project it would make a good first project on a bandsaw. If you just got a bandsaw and you're like, oh, what do I want to do with it? What do I want to do? I want to just cut curvy things. This would be a really good one because you get to cut this way and this way on your bandsaw. So I made these out of cherry, and these are identical to a pair that I made about 8 years ago on my channel. I made a pair out of maple, and man, we've gotten a lot of use out of this thing, or out of these. And so anyway, you get to work on some concave stuff and get to cut out these tines, and it's got a little lip back here that really help you to hold on to. So I love this design, and yesterday, just to make sure that I could get this done in this short amount of time, I made a sample one, so I'll make its matching one today with you. Another thing that helps, of course, you need a bandsaw for this project. The other thing that helps is if you have a lot of sanders, because it's all about the sanding. Okay, so first of all, if you want to make this project, tomorrow I'll have these templates you can download. So it's actually 2 pieces. This is the side view that'll go on the side of the board, and then of course this is the face. So what you want to do is start with this side piece. So let's just get going here. And I'll cut this out. So are there people in the chat?
Yeah, there's quite a few people in the chat.
Cool. Hey everybody. I'm sorry I can't look at whatever you're saying. Wyatt will relay anything that's pertinent to me, and maybe we can answer some of your questions. I just thought this would be kind of a fun thing to do, and especially since it's the Christmas season and a lot of woodworkers are looking for gift ideas, and these things are so easy to make, and I think it'd be a great gift project. You can crank out a whole bunch of these in an afternoon. This is spray adhesive. I use the Almered spray adhesive. I'm not attached to any brand. This was what was at the store.
Okay, here's a question. What's a good starting bandsaw?
Oh boy, I don't know. I've got the one from Harbor Freight, and I actually talk about it in tomorrow's video. You can show that there. And I would not recommend that for a starting bandsaw, and I can talk a little bit more about that later. It's super cheap. It's really affordable, but man, is it kind of... I think if it was your first bandsaw, it would be really frustrating to use. And the dust collection is almost a deal breaker. It just basically doesn't collect dust at all. So anyways, this is the little side template. So I've got this piece of cherry here. I've got the spray adhesive on it, and I just want to stick this on something like that. And that was like real close to the edge there, but that's okay. All right, let's take this over to the bandsaw and start cutting. So I'm going to get my safety glasses. So the best way for you to shoot is probably over here, since the sunlight kind of comes in here. And I decided to shoot this time of day because early in the day the sunlight is right here and it's almost impossible to shoot this. So I'm going to stop with the yappity yap because I got to wear a dust mask because, again, you'll see this bandsaw, the dust collection is useless. So if you've ever, I guess I can still talk with this, sort of. It's a little weird, but
Yeah.
If you are new to using a bandsaw, our first cut that we're going to do is a resaw cut. So this is one of the best uses for a bandsaw is for resawing lumber. In other words, cutting it on its edge.
Oh, a quick question before you begin. What size of the wood are you using as the template?
Oh, the dimensions of the wood? Let me get a statement here. I'm not really sure. It's a good question. Oh, I know. I left it out here. All right. It's 3/4 inch thick lumber, 3/4 inch, and it's 5 inches by about 9.5. A little bit over that, just so that so the template will sit on it. Okay, let's start cutting. Get loud. Look at
God.
this. Look at that. This thing. This is where the dust is supposed to collect. It doesn't do anything. It's useless. So anyways, get over here. Sorry, that is really bad.
Yeah.
So I wanted to show you that if you haven't used a bandsaw before, if you haven't done any resawing before, this is not natural. Can you see those ridges?
Yeah.
See how those are all ridges? It's from every time you kind of start and stop. You know, in an ideal world, you would have a you would just keep it going smoothly through the entire cut. And on, on flatter surfaces, it's a little bit easier. When you're cutting through that much material, it's just a lot of like slow going, and that makes those ridges. So those all have to be sanded down. That's why this project is so much about the sanding, but I don't want to give it a huge sanding right now. There's no point because I'm going to be cutting out the other shape, but I do want to sand off a little bit so that this next template can stick on there pretty well. So I'll get that going right now. Do you want a dust mask?
I'll be fine. I've got my jacket here.
Okay. This will be actually better than that bandsaw.
And apparently 500 people were watching you cut that board.
See, that's YouTube right there.
Yeah. And now right around 600 people are watching you put on a dust mask.
There's some excitement.
Yeah.
All right, so I've got a 60 grit sandpaper in my random orbit. I'm just going to start to shape this a little bit. Enough for that. It's just any of those huge. One thing I found out is if there's any big, huge, thick ridges, that the template has a hard time sticking to it. So next thing I want to do is this is the second part of the template, and I'll just cut this out, outside of the line here, and stick it in place.
$605 people are watching you cut paper.
It's all about the end game here, though. Okay. Okay, back to the spray adhesive.
Oh, here's an idea for a project someone mentioned in here under the name of Wallaby Party. It'd be cool for you to make a boomerang.
Oh yeah. It is a good. I'd like to actually try that and see if I could get it to work.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to put this on the concave side, probably. This I think you can probably do it either way, but I'll set it like this and screw that down. All right. Next thing I want to do is before I take this over to the bandsaw and cut it out, I've got a drill with a 1/4-inch drill bit in it, and right at the end of these, I guess these would be called tines, right?
Yeah,
I just want to drill a hole there so I can cut these out on the bandsaw. That way I don't have to take the bandsaw into that really tight curve. So I'll just get this close. Drill a hole. Not sure why I started with that one, but there we go. Same up here. All right, and back to the bandsaw. How are you guys doing? This is kind of fun. I've never, I did one of these live shows where I built a project back in like You helped me with it. It was like 2010.
20 something like
We
that.
built Trivets. It was like when Google Hangouts, that was when that first started, I
I
think.
think so.
So that was how you could do the live streaming back then.
Yeah.
But we had to use, I don't think we used a phone. I think we used a camcorder or something.
I used a laptop. I remember that.
Is that what it was?
I had the laptop with me.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
All right, back
Amazing
to
how
the-
things change.
The sawdustiest bandsaw ever.
But this time I managed to find your sunglasses.
Oh yeah, those are actually my sunglass / safety glasses, but I like them a lot. So, another thing about a bandsaw, you can cut like this, but really you should probably bring this down closer to the actual piece. I'll leave it up a little bit so you can actually see where I'm making my cuts. Here's another problem with this bandsaw. It's got these kind of things to adjust these guide blocks, and they just loosen up. I guess I should probably bring a wrench to this, but that's kind of just dumb. And the other thing about this bandsaw that I just do not like is that it doesn't have a hinged door on here. So you have to unscrew these, take this whole piece off just to get to the blade to set the tracking, or even to change the blade you have to do the same thing on the bottom. You'd have to unscrew these, and it cuts well. It does a good job cutting, but man, it's just got too many weird quirks to it. It's got a little bit of vibration to it too, so I guess you get what you pay for in this case. But it was cheap. I think it was like $300, maybe even less than that. All right, this one will go a lot faster. That's it. So there's your basic salad server, but it needs a lot of shaping to it because right now it is pretty rough. And this is where all of these sanders come into play. So I'm gonna take this off, and I think I'm gonna start with this sander. At least it doesn't quite go up high enough, but it's good enough. And let me hook up this dust collection to it.
What kind of wood are you using?
That's cherry.
This is cherry.
This is leftover cherry from the dining room table that was in the Powered Up course. By the way, if you guys are interested in my woodworking courses, if you guys did the first one and wanted to get in on the second one, we're reopening that in January, in just a couple of weeks. Okay, so I'm going to power this on, and again, it's going to get noisy. Small shop. This is one of my favorite tools. So that gives me the basic shape of what I'm looking for. I probably could spend a little more time working on that. The spindle sander is really good for inside curves, and it works great for this little curvy spot back here. But for these outside curves, I didn't want to use it too much because it kind of is a little bit aggressive, and it'll just end up putting weird divots where I want this curve. So I'll finish up this curve actually on my random orbit sander and that little finishing sander, because the ideal tool would be a belt sander, a stationary belt sander. I don't have one of those. And then that way you could really shape that convex, is that right?
Convex, yeah.
Of it, right. So, but I can come over here to sand the inside. This is also one of my favorite tools, this little 1-inch strip sander. And I've talked about this before. Let me put the dust collection over there. I just have to move everything around. I've talked about this before, how much I love this tool, and how when I bought it, I thought, well, I'll never use that 1-inch strip sander. Really, I wanted this disc sander on there, which is also really handy. But then once I started using it and finding uses for that 1-inch strip sander, it's amazing how handy that is. It's good for even like just sharpening tools. You can sharpen things on it. You can get into these tight little nooks and crannies you can shape with it. It's almost like a sculpting tool. So let me turn the vacuum back on. Yeah, we'll get to that. Back to the sanding. Told you, this is all about sanding. Lots of sanding. So I've got my random orbit. I'm going to switch. One thing I've learned about sanding over the years is change these things more frequently than you think they need to be changed. I get them in these big, I don't know, there's like 20 of them in there or something. And they just use up faster than you think, and then you just keep sanding and sanding, and you're just not getting anywhere. And as soon as you switch on, put a new one on, you'd be amazed at the difference. The problem is, when I switched from one grade to the other, a lot of times I have this weird mania about saving this, thinking, well, there's still some left in it, so I put it into my sandpaper drawer, and I've got thousands of these that I probably shouldn't save, but throw that one away because I know it's a goner.
Do you have any advice for a first-time woodworker?
Any advice for first-time woodworker? Yeah, don't expect to be perfect at anything. Even for a woodworker who's been around for a while doing this, I never expect anything to come out perfect, because it never does. And don't point out your mistakes to people either. I think that's an important one too, because every project has mistakes. Every project has challenges. I have never, ever made a project where something didn't go wrong. Even in this just little thing here, I noticed when I was cutting on the bandsaw, one of these, instead of cutting down this way, I cut right here on that edge, that notch, but it's a little error. It doesn't really matter, and I'm just going to sand it out. So let me take care of a little bit of sanding this and sit back and watch a guy sand. I'll put these on, it's noisy.
Yeah, you're telling me. I want to go back to the spindle sander, because I forgot to sand the inside of these curves, which was kind of important.
And it'd be a lot easier than sanding it out. Back with my dust collection. I don't even have the proper fitting for this. It just kind of sits there, just like that. But it actually works. It just, I don't know. Just kind of, I kind of just wedge it in like that's the way it works around here. All right, let's do a little bit of, oh, can you flip that orange switch there?
This one?
Yep. Way better with Wyatt shooting this. I was just gonna like set up a tripod and like, here's a shot, and then just do the whole thing, and then have to move the camera around. So it's really cool. Okay. The other thing about these is you gotta sand round over these edges, otherwise you just get it's just uncomfortable that way. One of the fun things about this project is that you can kind of get as sexy as you want with these curves and, you know, make it your own that way. Just follow my template, it'll get you close, but you might want to make those narrow, make it look more like a spoon shape or whatever you like. I'm going to use this little detailer and get down into these cracks just a little bit.
Oh boy, more sanding.
Yeah, I know, I had this one all prepared. It's a good thing I did this dry run yesterday so I could figure out exactly everything that I was going to use to make this. And switch my cord out. By the way, I really like this sander. This is a little Black & Decker mouse sander. It's a finishing sander, but it's really great for little tight corners, and I don't know, I really like it. I'm going to do just a 120 grit sandpaper on this time. I'm done with all of the heavy duty sanding. Sometimes when I go to a finer grade sandpaper, it'll show off areas that have like little grooves or scratches or whatever. That just means that I didn't sand enough of the rough sanding. So I got to go back real quickly with my 60 or 8, I think it's 60. So yeah, 60 grit sandpaper and smooth those out. And I got switch the cord.
If it's a finishing sander, why haven't you finished yet? I didn't come up with that.
Yep. Alright, let's get rid of these things here. To the finishing sander, or I could put in like a finer grit sandpaper in the random orbit sander, but since I have this set up, I'll just use it.
How many different types of sandpaper do you use?
I usually use 3. I use 60 grit for shaping, then I go up to a 120 grit for smoothing, and then I go up to a 220 grit for final smooth before I finish it. But that's really all you need. You don't really need a whole lot of other sandpaper, and there's really no point in going higher than 220 because it'll feel super smooth, but if you're going to put a finish over it, which you do on most projects, then you just kind of wasted a lot of time because the finish itself isn't really what's going to be smooth. Feels pretty smooth. Let me grab here's hand sandpaper and just get down in here a little bit. This is this is 220 grit here, which is smoother than I was using on the face here.
You've gotten numerous requests to paint this purple.
You gotta do that.
Yeah, you should paint it purple.
Because I didn't finish this one. All right. I'll just see if I have some purple paint. Which actually leads me to another thing that people ask a lot about is, since this is going to be used for food, what is a food safe finish? And generally on something like this, you're safe to just lacquer them, or even really polyurethane. Anything you want to use, most of those finishes, once they cure, I would give them, you know, at least a week or so, maybe. It might be overkill. To cure, they're food safe. And so really lacquer is fine to use on these, but like these here, I just used mineral oil. So if you want to just get super safe, use, this is just baby oil, which is just cheaper mineral oil, and that you can get at the supermarket. And then put them on just like you would a cutting board. And it makes them look really nice, but you have to keep reapplying it, you know, as you use them and you wash them, you know, once a month or so, put some fresh mineral oil on it. So, all right, so basically, I don't know how long we've been at this, probably a half hour or so.
We've been at it for 41 minutes and 5 seconds.
There you go. There's one of those that we made in 41 minutes. Probably a little, it probably would have gone faster, but I was talking a lot of the time. So make a couple of them and say under 2 hours, and then apply a mineral oil finish, and you're done. Easy as that. But we're gonna finish these with paint. Right?
That's what the people want.
I see my paint collection over here. Oh, we do have purple paint. Right here. Oh, it's almost empty. Oh, we'll see. Put out some paint. This took an unexpected turn.
That's live entertainment.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done this if people hadn't asked for it. There's a funny story about the purple paint. For those of you who might not know, that there's this thing where people think that there's been an ongoing kind of bit in my show that I paint everything purple. And it was really funny because I painted one bench that I made purple. It sat out in our front yard, and I thought it was really neat. And for some reason, that was like basically the only project I did that was purple, but everybody thought that I got into this thing of painting everything purple. But you know what I painted purple? This was funny. See those purple stripes on the wall over here? These things were when I had these old clamp racks over here I made, and I decided to make these new ones, and so I tore them down, and that's where the old ones were, and so that there was no paint there because I just painted around them this white paint, and so for a couple of weeks it was sitting there, and people were asking me, why didn't you paint that? Why didn't you paint that? And of course they expected me to paint it white, I suppose, so I just thought, okay, I'll paint it. So I painted it purple. So that's why there's those purple stripes there, in case you ever wondered. I'm just trolling my audience. This should be enough paint. I've used so much spray paint, I can kind of estimate how much it's going to cover.
For the love of Chuck Norris, don't paint them. Followed by, he's gonna do it.
There we go. These are painted cherry.
Now it's like a big thing of do it. No, don't do it. Do it, don't.
It's real. Okay, I already have them. This is what they look like. This is cherry. I would never paint cherry normally. But hey, you guys want me to paint cherry? I'll paint cherry.
It's like at 50-50 right now, so maybe. Yeah.
There used to be like a poll.
Yeah, there should be a poll.
There's like this camp, and I used to be in this camp too. It's like, don't you dare paint wood. It's holy. You shouldn't paint it. It's a revered thing. But you know, I just like to paint wood. I wouldn't normally paint. If I was gonna make these and paint them, I would use pine. You guys asked for it.
No, don't paint me. Someone just said paint the cameraman. Don't do that. The madman.
All right. Oh, bye-bye, cherry. Right now, there's a million old-timey, well, not a million, but several old-timey woodworkers who are watching this are cringing at the thought of paint going on this. But
Instantly ugly. Well done. No. Ah, that was satisfying. Yeah. It's just fun to read the comments for this.
well, Well, it's but I have this to compare with. So we already have the cherry versions, and these will be on tomorrow's video. You'll see them. That'll be the serious video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why did you make purple feet?
They do like purple bear hands.
Yeah.
Now it's gonna be another thing. Purple.
This is amazing. Fight the establishment.
Power to the people.
Fancy. Extra fancy. Extra fancy with asterisks on the side.
Well, I like generating a little bit of controversy on this channel. There's one thing I managed to do.
You're soon just gonna have to release an apology video.
I will. I'm gonna have to do one of those apology videos. So sorry. The title of the video will be "I'm sorry," and then it has to be brackets that says "emotional."
Of course.
Emotional. You know what? I need something that I can stick these up so I can paint the other side, like something that has nails in it. I might have something like that, but I'm not sure. Let's see something with nails in it. How well prepared I am. Let me see what that is. Oh, here's something with nails in it. And look, purple.
Yay.
Let's put some nails in these things. I can paint the other side.
He turned a piece of wood into a masterpiece. Someone says you should put rhinestones on them.
That'd be awesome. I might have some rhinestones somewhere. I've got just so much junk here. Here's some nails.
Make a bunch and run them up the wall.
You know what I'll do is I'll hang these over here, right here on the wall when I'm done.
Yeah.
And then you guys can know that you were here during the live show when I painted cherry. I painted cherry purple. So here's a little thing you could do if you guys don't want to wait for paint to dry or stuff like this is put some nails in something like this. So, let's see, 3 ought to do it, right? So maybe figure out how that's gonna sit. I didn't plan that out right. Yeah, I think if I put one way back here. Okay. So now I can flip this over. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, now I can paint the other side. Yeah, well I guess I should do this other one too. This has been like a regular video. As soon as I pulled out that paint, it would have seemed like the dislike ratio go. It would have been like YouTube Rewind.
Oh.
Like, you're painting cherry.
Sacrilege.
It's Will Smith painting cherry. You guys see the YouTube Rewind this year? All right, here we go. I'm gonna get these out of the way because these are the ones I'm actually using. I was going to use these too, but there you go.
I guess that's why you got the mineral oil out.
That's why I had the mineral oil. I was going to do a demo on the mineral oil. But this is way more fun. You guys know how long to shake a can of paint? 5 seconds. I still go longer than that though.
Well, you can never be too sure.
Yeah. Well, I did a test on it actually. Now, how am I going to get inside this?
Ah! Constantly on the other side of me.
You know what I can do is I'll show you a little tip about spray painting.
Ooh, a spray painting tip.
Yeah, while we're here. Well, Ooh. Now I can just tag things. That looks pretty good. All right. We got some purple solid servers. Thanks, guys. I would have not have done that if it hadn't been requested during this live show. That was kind of fun. So I don't know. We don't need to wait around for all of this. Let me see if the other side it's still tacky. So, quick spray painting tip. If you were going to paint solid salad servers, which nobody in their right mind would do this, but you could do this. And if you're going to spray paint anything, here's a tip. You put on one coat of paint, and then usually, especially with this, I really like this Rust-Oleum 2X. It comes with a primer on it and everything. It does a really good job. It coats really smooth. Wait for it to dry, sand it with 220 grit sandpaper, sand the paint, and then apply the second coat, and it just makes that so smooth and even, and you don't have any blotches on it, and that's what I do with spray painting things. So there we have it. That is how you make a project on the bandsaw in under an hour. Well, at least, I guess it would only be half of a project, because a single salad server wouldn't do you much good. I think you would have to use like your hand or something. So that's what they were going to look like. They should look like. Cherry, beautiful salad servers with a mineral oil finish. Or purple ones.
Now it's just Purple Heart.
No, it's just Purple Heart. Yeah. Another thing about Purple Heart. A lot of people love, and we all do. If you go to a lumber yard and you see Purple Heart lumber, I don't know if I have any pieces of it around here. I probably don't. Is you think it's such a beautiful wood, and after about 3 years, it just turns brown. It's just dark brown, because I've got a couple of projects in the house that are like, it's a beautiful brown. It's a real chocolatey brown, but that purple doesn't last. And it's kind of the same with all really colorful woods, is they just don't last that way. And as far as I know, there's really no way of keeping them, those colors. So, what are we doing here? Yeah, that's the tech. Anyways, well, Ingrid, do you want to answer a couple questions before I go?
Yeah. How many grippers do you have in your shop?
Way too many. Microjig was always sending me grippers. And what happened is they had their original gripper, which was 2 different colors. It was yellow and black, and then they wanted to standardize that, and they didn't want me. That was the time when remember there's 2 different Microjig gripper. The guy's voice. There was 2 different versions of that, and the first guy used the old style grippers, the 2-tone colored ones, and then when they switched to the all yellow ones, they needed to switch that over too, so that's why that switched out. But so when they switched it over, they had to send me new ones because they didn't want me showing the regular grippers. So it's an interesting thing, Microjig. I love Microjig, and I love the grippers, and I still use they don't do the intros to my shows anymore, and that was on me because it's too much valuable real estate at the beginning of the show, and YouTube is all about getting people to watch from the very beginning of the episode or very beginning of the video and then continuing to watch. And so what was happening is a lot of people who really like those Microjig spots, the regular people, a lot of people were watching those and then they would just stop watching the video, and that just tells YouTube that like, well, I'm not interested in anything else, so they don't share and they don't recommend your videos. And then other people who came to the channel who didn't know it were confused by that introduction, and so I just thought I love doing those things, and I'm still really good friends with Microjig, and they send me stuff all the time and to test out and everything. I may do some other projects with them in the future too, and I still love using the gripper. I use it all the time. I can't imagine using my table saw without one of those.
And
Little.
good.
That was it.
All right.
Little inside story about Microjig.
Got a question here from Dylan Thomas. When is your next marathon / half marathon, I assume?
Yeah, actually, I just started training 2 weeks ago for a marathon. I haven't announced this to anybody because I was afraid to. You guys are the first to know that, because I've run a bunch of half marathons, and I decided to start. I was going to train for a marathon this year, but I ended up with a foot problem this past summer, and it set me back. But now I'm back on course, and I'm training. I got a 16-week training program for the end of March, the Oakland Marathon, which I really wanted to run because this year is the first year that any race has ran across the Bay Bridge, which would be really neat. They got the new Bay Bridge that goes to Treasure Island. I really want to do that, and I think it's a good goal to have. but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that or not. I'm training for it. If push comes to shove, I can always just run the half marathon, which is also a fun race, but it's just one of those kind of bucket list goals, you know, and I think I'm going to try it. 26 miles. What's 26 miles, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. It's a long way.
It's a distance, definitely.
It's a long way, I know.
What are the most useful bandsaw blades to have on hand?
I use almost exclusively a 3/8 inch blade, and like this project, for instance, it would have been really handy on these cuts to have a thinner blade, a 1/4 inch or even smaller blade. I could have made these curves a lot easier. If you notice when I was cutting those, I had to make a little bit of a curve because the angle wouldn't quite go all the way, and then I had to come from the other direction. But it's just a pain changing bandsaw blades out. So I find that a 3/8 inch blade works pretty well. I can resaw with it. If I was going to do a lot of resawing, though, I would get a thicker or wider blade, and then it would have much better results with that.
What is your favorite thing you've ever made? From C. Joe.
Favorite thing I've ever made? I don't know. I always think about the TARDIS was a lot of fun to make. I think the thing about that TARDIS was a lot of people didn't even know what the deal was with Doctor Who, and that was when I enjoyed watching Doctor Who back then. But the thing about that project was cool is that the whole project, I designed it so that you could take it apart and put it back together in like 5 minutes without any tools. So you could move it wherever you wanted. And I thought that it would be cool to like drive it around and set it up and then just take pictures of it, have like this photo essay of this TARDIS sitting in all these strange places. But the problem is that you really need to park close to wherever you're going to do it, because it's a lot of walking. Remember we set it up over there, and it's like, oh my God, it's all these heavy pieces you got to move back and forth. But I still have it sitting out in my shed. I don't know what I'm going to ever do with the thing, but that one comes to mind.
A question from Nathan Lee. Do you ever plan on doing a bandsaw basics video?
Yeah, I'd like to. It's on my list for this year. I would like to do that.
Okay, Edward Holmes asks, what happens to projects which don't get used in the house?
Give them away. Sometimes we auction them off. I haven't auctioned off any in a while. We would auction them off for the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Any tips for woodworkers who want to make a living off their work? From Braden Huffman.
That's a tough one. Because I know a lot of woodworkers who do kind of the craft show circuit and sell online, but it takes you have to do a lot of easy to make projects that you could batch out really quick. If you ever go to craft shows and you see kind of the things that people are making, you'll notice that they're simple and they're things that you can batch out. But see, I don't know if you could really make a living doing that, because that would be a lot of small items you'd have to sell. But the people who are really making a living in woodworking are probably taking on custom commissions and making good high-end furniture for people who appreciate good high-end furniture. And that means understanding that a dresser can cost you $10,000. You know, it's not IKEA. And it's a lot of work to make those things, but they do. It's hard. It's a tough business.
And a question from Ali. What can we expect from the next weekend woodworker course?
I think what we're going to do is shop projects. It's not, well, it's 99% certain it's going to be shop projects. But thanks for asking, because that's going to be coming out this spring, hopefully. As soon as the holidays are all done, I'm going to start to dive into designing a bunch of projects. It's going to have a lot more projects than the other ones, because they're going to be all... I thought it just stopped.
Well, it did, but it came back.
Oh, that's good. Every time I do one of these live shows, I have weird things happen. Yeah, so that's it. And don't forget, we've got the Powered Up course starts up again for 1 week. We'll open it up in January. Just a couple more weeks.
Yep. Another question, or just wrap it up?
We'll do one more question. How about that? Good one.
Someone asked, I don't remember who it was, but I saw it. What is your most used project that you have?
Probably the furniture projects that we've made. I mean, like our dining table we use every day, the TV credenza, our TV's on, the coffee table, end tables, all of the furniture is just, daily use stuff. The cutting board I use every single day for cutting things on. Well, here's the final purple salad server. They're still a little bit tacky. That's why I'm handling them gingerly. But it's a really fun project. If you guys have a bandsaw, this would be a fun project to just batch out like, you know, a half dozen pairs of these, give them away for Christmas gifts, and people will love them and they'll use them all the time. And it's super easy to make. And I hope that was kind of the point of this, to show you that it is a quick project you can make. Don't forget to watch the video, the actual build video. I feel strange calling this I built these, because it didn't seem like I'm building these, right? You're just cutting them. That building kind of implies putting things together. But anyways, the build video will be out tomorrow, and then that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this year.
All right.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you had fun watching me sand stuff.
Yeah.